This is Joanna Kearns, and you're listening to Fascination Street Podcast.
Yeah, AV in your ears. That's Ambush Van giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world with my boy Steve. Fascination Street, you already know. Let's get it when you whip in the Fascination Street. What do you?
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Griff Furst. Griff is an actor, director, screenwriter, and producer of a whole lot of stuff. He's produced like 37 movies. It's crazy. In this episode, we get to know Griff. We talk about where he studied acting and how that helped him boost the success of his auditions. We also talk about how he got into directing and producing, some of the hardest parts of producing and some of the funnest parts of directing. We talk about where he gets his inspiration to adapt novels into screenplays and where he finds those projects. We also talk about what it is like to work with producers who are more experienced versus producers who are less experienced versus producing by yourself. Of course, we talk a little bit about his parents, both of whom were in the film Animal House, so stay tuned for that. And we talk about his 3 upcoming movies. The day we recorded this was the day that Devil's Peak was released in theaters. Devil's Peak, it's a murder suspense drama starring Billy Bob Thornton and Robin Wright and Jackie Earle Haley. We also talk about this upcoming film called 57 Seconds starring Morgan Freeman and Josh Hutcherson, which is going to come out this September. And we talk about a movie that he recently just finished producing. The movie's finally done. It's in the can. It's going to come out sometime this year. Half-Baked 2. You heard that right. What took so long? Laughs abound. You're going to enjoy this. If I lived anywhere near Griff, he would be my new best friend. Check it out. This is my conversation with actor, director, screenwriter, and producer Griff Furst.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Griff Furst. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, Steve. It's good to see you over there in your booth.
Oh, well, it is good to see you over there standing on top of Devil's Peak, which we will talk about later.
That's right.
So first, what I like to do is I like to get to know the guests, sort of how they came to be where they are. So I like to start at the beginning. It helps us understand how you got to turn into the you that you are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
The origin story. I was born in Van Nuys, California, in the lovely and beautiful San Fernando Valley.
That is gross.
I love it. And I get that reaction in San Fernando a lot. But when you grow up there, it's like the grime of Sherman Way and just that part of the world. It's my favorite. Whenever I'm sad, I just go walk around the San Fernando Valley. It makes me happy.
Okay, so I've only been to LA a handful of times. And one of the times, I think it might have been my first time, I was taking like an Uber from, let's say, Burbank to Santa Monica, right?
Yeah.
And when I left Burbank, it was, I don't know, like 79 degrees or 80 degrees maybe. And when I got to Santa Monica, it was like 71 degrees or maybe 73 degrees. But when I was going through Van Nuys, it was 104 degrees sitting on the highway. I was like, what is happening right now?
It's true. It's why I don't live there anymore. It's a little bowl. It's just like a little bowl, and it captures all the heat that drops down there. And you need a really good AC. The trick to California is, see, where I live now, I'm out in like Westlake, Calabasas, Agora area. And so when you stand on the top of the hill there, you can see the ocean, which means there's no mountains or bowls obscuring it. So you get that fresh breeze that gives you those good Santa Monica temperatures.
Gotcha. Well, Santa Monica is way better than Van Nuys because Van Nuys sucks. I'm sorry that that's your favorite place and that's your safe space, but
it's not my favorite place. It's the nostalgic place, right? It's like I remember riding my bike to get baseball cards when I was a kid. I much prefer where I am now for sure, but I like to visit.
Well, that is very sweet of you. My safe space or my favorite place is the basement at the Alamo. Just kidding. That's a Pee Wee Herman reference.
I like the line read. That was good.
Thanks. Yeah, and what's his name? Tim Burton. Didn't he direct that Pee Wee Herman?
He did.
I know you're a big Tim Burton guy.
He did. Yeah, he directed. Was it all of them, or was it just The Big Top Adventure?
I think it was just the first one, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yeah, man.
I think it was just that one. I think. Who the hell am I? I don't know, man. But that's how I remember it. I saw that movie in a drive-in. Oh my God, I'm old.
I know. I miss drive-ins. And I probably watched that movie 100 times when I was a kid. I haven't seen it in so long, but I remember I could still pick out the song from that movie. Like if you just played it with no reference, I would know it's from Pee Wee Herman.
You think you were excited? That was the first time I ever saw somebody or heard anybody mention the Alamo. I was like, oh my God, they're coming to San Antonio. I was looking for that dude. I was looking for his bike. So first off, let me say congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you. Yeah, she's a pandemic baby. The cutest, most biggest pain in the ass I've ever seen, but I love her. She's the best. She's my best friend.
Yeah, you just wait. My kids are in their 30s. It never stops.
Imagine it gets better, though, once they're not toddlers.
Oh, that is so sweet. You have such a great and vivid imagination. It never, ever gets better.
Gotta be better than somebody screaming no at you and drawing on my computer's marker all over it because she decided that was a good notepad for her to draw on yesterday.
So does mine. And my kids are 30 and they still do that. I'm just kidding. Parenting is the greatest job ever. And you, speaking of jobs, you do all of the things. You're an actor, you're a director, you're a producer, you're a screenwriter. Oh my gosh, dude, save some for the rest of us. Ladies and gentlemen, you know Griff's parents, oddly enough, both of his parents were in the movie Animal House, but his mom went on to be a lawyer. His dad kept acting and producing. And did he direct as well?
He did direct as well. Yeah, that's good. I can't believe you know my mom is in Animal House. It's a good piece of trivia there. Not a lot of people seem to know.
Who doesn't know that? I think that you and your siblings are probably the only kids who can say, oh, both of my parents were in that. I mean, I might be
Probably
wrong.
right. Yeah.
So I know that acting was in your family, it was in your blood. Your brother went off to be a super successful composer, and that's super dope. From what I understand, he has become so successful that even you can't afford him.
Sometimes. I mean, he'll do me a solid. He actually I just kicked him out about 3 minutes ago. I'm like, I have to hop on this thing.
Yeah, dude, get out. It's Steve Owens is coming to dinner.
Exactly. I mean, we're super tight though, and I mean, it's if he is available, which there's been times he hasn't, he'll always do me a solid. But yeah, some of his budget for his scores on like the DreamWorks pictures are more than some of the budgets on my earlier movies. So it's there's a little disconnect there, but it's a good thing we're brothers because he'll do me a solid.
I love it. Keep it in the family. Okay, so we're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to go everywhere. But first, I want to say, am I correct? Did you study at the Beverly Hills Playhouse with Milton Katselas?
I did. Milton Katselas and Richard Lawson, they were both my mentors. It was a great place to be in the time that I was there.
Just, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 episodes ago, I had a fellow on who also studied under Milton at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. And it was so weird because I wasn't aware that I guess there's drama or some shit around Milton. I didn't know anything like that. So it sounded weird when he was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and say it. Yeah, I worked under Milton. And I'm like, what? Anyway, I don't care about any drama. I didn't know there was any. But were you in class with John Griffin, who I'm talking about?
Yeah, the other Griff from Beverly Hills Playhouse, as I call him.
Yeah.
I know John Griffin. I don't think we were actually in the same class, but it is a small and very intimate community. I say small. I think there was like 1,500 students there when I was there, but
that's pretty small.
It is pretty small. And all the kind of higher level actors who know their shit, they all knew each other. So I know him and he knows me and we're friends on Facebook, but we didn't actually study together or prepare any scenes together. Nor was I really aware there was any kind of drama with Milton. I know that he was a fabulous director and teacher. There was always some kind of controversy about the Scientology aspect of that because for whatever reason, a large percentage, because Milton was a Scientologist, a large percentage of the students and teachers were also Scientologists. Not everybody, not me.
Not the other Griff either, as far as I understand.
Yeah, and sometimes that would they were never heavy-handed trying to convert people to Scientology. But sometimes he would reference it. But in his defense, he would reference any good information that he ever collected throughout his lifetime from anywhere he ever got it. And Scientology, just like any religion, probably has some good information in there. And you don't have to go do all the auditing and the weird shit to appreciate it. But I didn't know there was any kind of drama. But I went there to study, and that's it. Yeah. I wasn't super social within the environment.
I looked into it, and I think the drama really stems from, people just assuming that he was trying to recruit into Scientology from that class. And I think that's a ridiculous notion. Would they be saying that if he was, mentioning Bible verses or something to happen. I just think that's dumb. So I don't even know why we gave that any air. I don't like that. So if you are bored or you're on a plane or you're in the back of an Uber or something, an Uber Black, I'm sure, you really should check, especially since you know John Griffin, you should check out my episode with him. It is one of the best episodes I've done in nearly 350 episodes. It was an amazing interview with that guy. That guy's dope.
Awesome. I will check it out for sure.
Also put him in your movies to really confuse the shit out of everybody on set.
I always lean towards Playhouse actors, and I've worked with a lot of them. And there's some huge names that have come through there because we work the same way. And so we speak, there's like a certain nomenclature that comes around with it. And it's not like it's super unique to Beverly Hills Playhouse. Any highly trained actor will have the same nomenclature. But Mill has kind of a specific teaching. So it's always a pleasure to work with fellow actors from that environment because they all speak the same kind of language. It's really easy to direct.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be. It has to be, right? Shortcuts. And yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So toward the beginning of your career, when you sort of transitioned from, I'm just going to be a rock and roll god with no responsibilities, I think it was in the Beverly Hills Playhouse. You were in a scene or you directed a scene. Yeah, I think you directed a scene that led to basically a daisy chain of nonstop work from a short film to half a dozen or more features. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah, that's very true.
How did that come about?
It was from a couple different things. It was from my father. My father's pretty neurotic, kind of like Woody Allen neurotic. He was full Jew and he was always worried about things in a humorous way, of course. But he always told me, even though he was really successful as an actor, he'd always express to me that the anxiety he would have as an adult with 2 kids and relying on auditions to get work or just booking work. So he's always like, I support you acting, just do everything. So that was always in my head, even though I was like, no, screw that. I'm just gonna be an actor because it's what I love. And it's still my preference. It's such a great gig being an actor. But at the Beverly Hills Playhouse, one of my dear friends and mentors, Richard Lawson, challenged me to direct a scene or a 1-act play. First, it was actually a scene. And he's like, you're a really good director. You should do this 1-act play for this festival we're doing. I did that. One of the other students in class saw it. And he's like, hey, man, that was a really cool thing. I'd like to put $5,000 on my credit card, rent some equipment, and turn this into a short film. And so we did that. And it was cool. It was super avant-garde and artsy. And we submitted it to LA Film Festival and it got in. And somebody there, this very strange producer who we later found out was all hyped up on meth. This was 2005, I think, or 2004, something like that. He wanted to make a horror movie for $30,000 and he paid me $1,000. Well, he agreed to pay me $1,000. Never actually paid me, but we made the movie, sold it to Lionsgate. And then after that, just started getting tons of offers to do these really small, low budget directorial movies. But I was in my mid 20s and I was like, yeah, this is really cool. And right around that time, digital was coming out. Super hard for new artists to break in unless you've won an Oscar for a short film or something like that, or won the grand jury prize. And so a lot of people were recognizing my talent, inspiring me to create my own content. So I just kind of ran with that. And it worked to a degree because every time I made something, a new audience member with the capacity and the desire to make something else would seek me out and then say, hey, do this. I love hearing about producer and directors' journeys because it's always different kind of how they've climbed the ladder to where they are. I always think just doing something, anything to get something on tape is the best way to start. If you don't have, the best way to start might be to have a precise route of exactly what you want to do. I wasn't super clear. I just know that I loved making movies and I loved working. So when people offered me stuff, I just took it and ran with it and did the best damn job I could. And I think that was pretty apparent to everybody else. So that just kept happening. The movies turned into 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 6 million, 10 million. That's how I got there. It's kind of by happenstance.
Well, happenstance and a whole lot of talent and hard work. During that time, did you sort of put yourself maybe in a confining kind of a box because you directed like a really great thing for almost no money and then kept being expected to, pull a rabbit out of your ass and direct something super dope with almost no money? I feel like your first few movies that, they expected the world and they were like, and here's $4.
100%. Yeah. It was putting yourself into that box. But I think even more importantly, in retrospect, and if I could go back, no regrets, right? But if I could go back and do something different, one thing from that decade or so of my life, from like 20 to 30, that I would definitely change is I would be more particular about what I do, because people handing me $100 million script and saying, go make this for $500,000. That didn't concern me. I'm like, we'll figure out a way to do it or we'll modify the script. What was more hampering to the big opportunities to work with A-list talent and to really show a wider audience of what's capable was the genre. It's like a lot of these low budget movies were super genre, sci-fi, horror without enough money to achieve what's on screen. And I love those genres of movies. It's some of my favorite genres of movies, but it was very hard to go from that and to say, I'm going to make better stuff, because people would Wikipedia or whatever and be like, oh, but you made, Ghost Shark or whatever, which I love that movie. That was so fun to make that movie, but it was a cheap movie that did really well. Blumhouse said it was one of the top 10 horror comedies ever made. So that's cool. I appreciate that, but it does make it hard to transition into higher level stuff. And when I'm meeting with A-list talent or something, I really have to wow them with my creativity so they can see who I am. Because otherwise, if you look at the first 10 years of my career, it's like, oh, you make a bunch of like creature features and stuff. But it wasn't my choice. It's just, I really loved working, and those were the people who found me. And so I did it. So if I could do anything different, I'd probably be a little more discerning, because I would always get a script and say, this script isn't very good, but I like the filmmakers and I like all the people involved. So maybe this could be something. And now I've learned that that's not true. It's like a good script can turn into a bad movie, but it's so statistically rare that a bad script will actually turn into a good movie. So now when I read a bad script, I just say, no, thank you. Whereas in the past, if somebody was offering me money to make a bad script, I'm just going to say, I'll make the best damn script I can out of this bad script. But I think being discerning can go a long way in this industry, but it's hard to say no when people are wanting you to do something and paying you money for it. Do something you love.
So do you think that you kept saying yes just because of the excitement of getting to direct and getting to be a part of these projects, even if you weren't super excited about the project, just the fact that somebody was going to pay you to do the thing that you love so much? Do you think maybe that's why you said yes to some of these?
100%, because even though what they were paying me to do was not $100 million movie, there's millions of people who would love to do what I did, which is get paid to do what you love consistently, back to back to back. So yeah, it was like youth and excitement, and the film crew's like a family. So like having these revolving families that all want to keep making stuff together, it was super exciting. And I love to stay busy. I love to create. And so it was an easy path to create 24/7, 365 days a year, I had more than I could get with producing those movies. And I loved it. So yeah, it's very, very, very easy to say yes to being able to make film, to do what I love, exactly like you said.
I know it's not exactly apples to apples, but it sounds almost like, I don't know, the half dozen or a dozen directors who went on to be super huge, who got their start with, working with Roger Corman, like Ron Howard and all these people. So it seems like you sort of had that kind of a career at the beginning, and, you're just off to the races.
Yeah. And it's always good to see people like more and more as I get older. I just turned 42.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. I see people from that time period of my life really kicking ass. Like I was just talking with somebody about Rachel Lee Goldenberg, who's really hot right now. She's doing huge stuff. She was my PA on a really low budget zombie movie we made back in 2005. I was probably 20, mid 20s, and she was probably early 20s or late teens. And I remember her being one of the best PAs I ever had, just like so on it. She was awesome. And I keep seeing that recurring now, which is great to see people who started in that like ultra low budget world with me doing big studio stuff for HBO Max or whoever. It's just like, I love it. I love seeing that happen.
Well, that is fantastic. I also love seeing that happen. I like seeing people's names, go through the different iterations, like, Joanna Kearns, she's executive producing a show on ABC. And, just growing up watching her on Growing Pains, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know her. I know that name. And then you're like, oh my God, it's her. And she's, because she doesn't act anymore. So you're like, whatever happened to that person? Well, she directs, she produced, she executive produced, she's a showrunner. Like, she does all this crazy stuff. And so I love, like you're saying with Miss Goldenberg, I love watching the names go through the different stages on the credits. My wife and I are rewatching Friends, and it's surprising how many episodes were directed by 70s heartthrob Robbie Benson. Like, you're just like, yeah. Whoa, what is happening right now? Yeah. Whatever happened to that guy? Well, he's working his ass off just behind the camera. So I love seeing all of that. Since you had all of that work come so fast, well, to me, it seems really fast, kind of all at once. Did it make you think that the whole Hollywood business thing was going to be easy?
I don't know. It's never easy. So, I mean, the hours alone are brutal, right? So, but I grew up on set with my father, so I was used to those hours right away. Like, I knew, what I directed or produced, they're going to be 16-hour days. So the hours were tough, but I will say that I didn't act until I got out of high school. This is super nepotism, because I was my son's age. I was about 9 years old. My father was on a TV series on CBS called Howie and Rose, and he had a son in the series. It was a pilot. I don't think it ever got picked up. And they just offered me the role. And it was in front of 1,000 people, live audience, sitcom.
Oh, my God.
And I said no. I was like, I knew I wanted to be an actor at that point, but I'm like, that's way too scary for a 9-year-old for no experience. So I focused on sports and other things. And then when I graduated high school, I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going to be a huge star. Like now my career is going to start.
And now I'm ready for Hollywood.
Yeah, now Hollywood's ready for me. And so I spent about 3 years in 100 auditions getting nothing, like not even a callback. That was the first time I realized that nepotism doesn't work, at least when your father's not as famous as Tom Cruise, right? Because no, I wasn't getting any play. And then I realized I was like, oh, you like even sons or children of celebrities need to know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, we're talking to you, Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, I didn't realize that like that there was like everybody who's a huge star is highly trained at what they do. You don't just show up and act. And so that's when I actually went to Beverly Hills Playhouse. I was like, I realized after a couple of years of not getting anything done that just winging it and thinking that my charisma or my charm is enough ain't gonna work. I needed training. So that's when I went to Beverly Hills Playhouse. And within about a year of being there, I started getting everything, just started booking everything because it was just like, I had the experience of being on set. So I knew the environment and the spirit of how everything ran. But it was really that training. And like, cause that Beverly Hills Playhouse was intense. I mean, it was like a full-time job, 60 hours a week, either in class or preparing the scenes for the next class, like hit it hard. And then just started booking everything as an actor right after that. So that was my first clue that it wasn't going to be easy. And then with directing and stuff, it's like that. I knew that part would be easy because immediately everybody wanted me to do these small things because they see what I could do. But then it started becoming very apparent that if you wanted to do bigger projects with better people, that wasn't going to be easy either because that was a very long, hard road too.
Listeners, he didn't mean better people. He just meant names higher up on the food chain. That's all he meant.
Higher perceived people, like,
more noteworthy. Yeah, sure. Names that can get something greenlit.
Exactly. Names that can get something greenlit, big writers who have track records of writing incredible screenplays, right? That kind of thing.
While we're talking about directing, you have somewhat of a reputation on sets you direct of kind of a, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. How do you feel about that reputation?
How did you get that information?
Well, I'm not telling you. How do you feel about that reputation and how do you think you got it?
I would say that's everything with life. I think I drive my wife nuts with that all the time too. It's like there's, on set, you're going to have 100 problems a day. If you're good, if you're terrible, you have 1,000 problems a day and you won't make your day, but you're still going to have 100 problems a day. And most people are of the optimistic mindset that I work with that do come with solutions like, hey, this is the problem, but we can do this, or this to fix it. That's what I love because it streamlines the conversation, takes advantage of the limited time we have, right? But I have worked with a few people who will say, this is my problem with no solution in mind. And in fact, they don't even want a solution. They just want to complain. So yes, I do have a policy that come with a solution to the problem. Like, of course, problems, expect them, but I don't want to just hear that there's a problem and then look to me to solve it, even though I'm capable of solving it, but not if the person's not open to a solution.
Nice. Is that what it says on the back of your director's chair? Because that's a lot of words.
I need to work on making it a little more concise. But I've never had that question presented to me because I didn't know it was publicly available. But I'm glad that you asked it because I think it's super important when you're trying to cram 40 setups or 30 setups into one day of photography. You gotta be solution ready. Yeah,
you gotta have your shit together. I know that you like to adapt novels into screenplays. I think you did that with, was it Cold Moon or whatever? Mm-hmm. How do you find your projects that you kind of are passionate about and you are leading the charge on? I don't mean like when people tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, come be a part of this. But when you grab the football and you say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. How do you find those projects?
I read a lot. I read a ton. In everything, like novels are probably my favorite. And by read, I mean Audible, usually, because I can multitask and put it on time speed. But if there's a book that's recommended to me, which my mother reads a ton too, so I'm actually in the process of optioning a book that she recommended to me. I read Cinematic Masterpiece in the Making. This thing is so good.
Well, keep it a secret.
Yeah, I will. I won't even say the title of it yet, but it'll hopefully be out in a couple of years. It's so good. But I love stories and storytelling. So sometimes it's news articles, or an idea, but just the way my brain works, and because I spend the majority of my time making movies, if I'm not like actively editing or directing or like I'm hyper focused on one singular thing, the next thing I'm doing is just like looking at the world and what's in it for the next story or a story that I feel like I want to tell. And novels are usually a great place to start. Like Cold Moon was Michael McDowell. I've read all of his books. He wrote Beetlejuice. He wrote a bunch of different really cool stuff in his novels. I mean, he is, I love Stephen King too. Stephen King loves him. They're very kindred spirits, Michael McDowell and Stephen King. He died of AIDS in 1999, so his library isn't as big as Stephen King's, but of his 12 to 15 novels, I've read all of them. They're friggin' excellent. I love Michael McDowell.
Didn't you get the movie rights to almost all of them?
Yeah, I tried to get the movie rights to almost all of them. And I did have the rights to a couple different of them, different versions of them, but I couldn't find a buyer for one of them.
Well, as a side note, he's not a previous guest, but if you like those two dudes' books, I think you should look into a guy named Scott Sigler. He's a little less well known than all of those other people, but he's probably got a dozen books already out there. And I think you'd really, really enjoy them if you like those two dudes.
Horror?
Yeah, horror fiction. He goes to different places. He has a book series it's about, this is going to sound dumb as shit, but it's not, I promise. He's got a thing that's like Any Given Sunday meets The Godfather, but in space. And so it's like the Galactic Football League. It's way in the future. It sounds dumb as shit, but it's really cool.
I love it.
But no, he's got a bunch of other really cool stuff.
I wasn't expecting the in space part of it. It's like that definitely sounds
yeah. But he's got a bunch of really cool stuff that's takes place here on Earth too. So you should look into him. It's really cool stuff.
I will check it out. I'm always looking for great authors, man, because I consume this shit like, oh sorry, I don't know how much
you can, yeah, say whatever you want.
I consume this stuff like crazy. Like I love a good story.
Start with Infected. I think there's 3 in that series.
Usually, by the way, when I first like get a record, like this is exactly what I read is like when somebody like you is like, check this out, it's dope. I immediately go and get it. But the first thing I do is I call the agent or the publisher and I say, are these rights optioned? And when do they come through? Because I have a whole tracking list. So it's like my wife reads like a lot of female-led thrillers, like the kind of stuff that not Renee Zellweger, Reese Witherspoon would option. And Reese Witherspoon has optioned most of them. So when she recommends one to me, I call the agent and they'll be like, oh, it's under option until 2024. So then I make a note and I call back, and as soon as it's available, I'll read that thing in like 2 days. Because if I want to get it. But I also don't spend the time reading. As much as I like stories, I want to make sure that if I'm reading something, I can turn it into a movie.
Right.
So I'm going to call his agent after this call. I'll let you know if it's available.
He's super easy to find on social media or whatever, and he gets back to me, whatever. We're not talking about him. Anyway, I was doing some research on you, and I know that that's the kind of thing that you're into, and I just thought that'd be a really good fit. I have absolutely no affiliation with that dude, and I got no skin in the game. I just thought it'd be cool.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
As of right now, I think you have produced like 37 movies.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
That is a lot. What is the hardest part of producing? And producing means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So for you, what's the hardest part of producing a film?
The hardest part for sure is managing the conflicting expectations of everybody, because my loyalty is to the picture 100%. It's like in a perfect world, I'm working with a director who we're completely in sync with, and we want the same thing, which is the absolute best picture you could possibly imagine. But then on the other side, you're dealing with all of the unions who have very strict rules. You're dealing with the bond company whose whole job it is to make sure that you don't go over budget at all. And usually when we're trying to creatively exceed expectations, always, a lot of that is there's a lot of cost involved in some of those things. So that is definitely the hardest part, because unfortunately you end up being the mediator and the bearer of bad news. I don't believe in bad or good, but the bearer of news that the other party doesn't necessarily want to hear, whether you're having to tell the financial people that you need to spend money that they didn't want you to spend, or you're having to tell the director that you can't do something that they want to, you can't have a piece of equipment because it won't get approved by something. So that is definitely the hardest. That and casting, right? Is if you cast the movie well, you're helping the director out by doing a large portion of their job having actors that can bring life to the script the way the director sees it, right? But that's always the challenge for me, is to just make sure that you're getting the best thing in the can, but still meeting everybody's expectations, whether they're financial or creative. And it's a tough spot to be in, especially my wife's always coming at me because I'm a creative person, obviously, at heart, but I also deal with the bank and the bond company. And I'm always leaning towards the creative side. I always want to spend the money that we don't have because I want the best movie possible. But I always have to check myself to be like, okay, what's an alternate way that we can achieve the same thing and stay on budget? So that 100% is the hardest part.
When you say your wife comes at you, does that mean she's coming at you because you're pulling money out of your bank account?
That's a good question. When we produce the indie movies, I produce for studios a lot. That's much easier because you have the support of the whole studio. We also, a lot of those 37 movies are part of our own library. We actually own the pictures.
And that's Curmudgeon?
That's Curmudgeon, yeah. So it's not necessarily coming out of our own bank account, but it's our investors, it's our loans, it's our whatever. And she's the controller. So we have accountants and everything, but at the end of the week, she gets a cost report and she stays up all day and all night analyzing it, seeing where we're over, why we're over. And then she'll come to me and she'll say, why did this person work 18 hours? And I go, well, they had to because this. And she'll say, you're stupid. Get rid of them. They don't need to do that. You could do this. And I say, you're right. I love her. We've been married for 12 years. And I'm glad she keeps me in check like that.
I was like, she's trying to buy groceries and you're bouncing checks all over town. But no,
No.
she's part of the company, the family business.
She's part of the family business. She's the controller. She typically doesn't work all week, but when the cost reports come in or the hot costs, she has a business degree. That's what she does. She analyzes that from a very non-creative standpoint. She's not a creative person. So she just looks at the numbers and she tells me what looks bad to her.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, since your mom had a law degree and was, elbow deep into the law, did your mom help your dad with Curmudgeon or as well? Was she also in the business?
She did. So part of the reason she got her law degree, because, when you're filmmaking, you're spending, $10 million in a 6-week period. There's a lot of legal and paperwork that goes into that. She started helping with that. She's worked for a couple firms, but ultimately entertainment law is not her first circle of passion, I'd say. So we have a lot of really talented lawyers that we work with.
Sure.
My mother's in her 70s. She's really enjoying being a grandmother and just chilling. So I try not to slam her with too much stuff because it's a lot. So we have a couple really solid firms and people that we work with regularly. And if my mom's involved with something, it's usually just at this point in her life, she's usually just advising. She's a savant. So she can tell you what the law is and she can tell you precedent. So it's more conversations with her than it is actually having her do anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
More as a counsel than an actual hands-on. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. As we're recording this, not as you're hearing this, but as we're recording this today, you have a new film, Devil's Peak. That's in theaters everywhere today. This is Devil's Peak, starring Billy Bob Thornton and Robin Wright, who used to be a Penn. And this is one of my favorite things to say ever. This film also stars Jackie Earle Haley, who happens to live 20 minutes from me.
He does. He does.
Yes, he does. Though I've never run into him in town for some strange reason.
If you do, say hello. Sweet
If I
man.
do, I'm sure I'm going to freak him the fuck out because I'll be like, and he's going to go, hiya.
I didn't know he had a jiu-jitsu background.
Yeah, well, to be continued. We'll find out. So you are a producer on this film. You have a cameo in it, I think, but you're a producer on this film. Is that right?
I do have a cameo in it. And yes, I'm a producer on the film.
Now, if I understand correctly, Robin Wright is also a producer on this film.
She is. Yeah, she came on and she was there almost every day in addition to her performance. And she was a huge creative force on the movie.
What is the difference between producing alongside a powerhouse like Robin Wright versus producing on your own or with someone who has maybe less experience as a producer? What's the difference working with somebody who's as acclaimed and as knowledgeable and as experienced as she is?
That's a great question because I've done a lot of both. So when you're the only producer on the picture, you have a lot of responsibilities, obviously. So you have to oversee everything. It's more work and it's more hours. When you have partners like we did on this picture, you always have to find, and every movie is different because everybody has their different capabilities. Their different strengths, their different kind of basis of knowledge. So typically, like I just finished Half Baked, a sequel to the Chappelle movie, and I was the only producer on the entire set. And so the majority of my time was spent creative with the director. And I love that because that's what I do. Now on Devil's Peak, we had highly creative people like Robin on the set who had very strong points of views about the scene and all this other stuff. So I ended up working where we had other areas of weakness, which on that particular movie happened to be in the back of the house and the office with the line producer and such. It's like they were struggling with a lot of company moves and things like that. So I ended up going to that side of this one a lot. I was on set every day behind the monitor, but I had my laptop and was really focused on where I was spotting problems. So that's really the difference. Is like when you have a bunch of producers, you really have to gauge everybody's strengths, help guide everybody into their spot where they're going to excel, where they're going to be happy, where they're going to benefit the movie, and then identify where the weakness is and then hop in there.
Got you. So can you tell everybody what Devil's Peak is about? Well, like what's the elevator pitch?
Devil's Peak is about murder. It's about a father and son relationship has gone bad. The father, he's been running a crime ring in a portion of the Appalachian Mountains for years. And he keeps his son, Hopper Penn, at bay by basically withholding his wages. And so,
did you say Hopper Penn?
Yeah.
Like Robin Wright's kid?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Wow.
Yeah. He's one of the leads in the movie. He's excellent. So Hopper's Billy's son. Robin is Billy's mom, is Hopper's mom in the movie. He's coming of age. It's a pretty dark coming of age story. And he decides he wants to get out, but there's huge risks and problems with that. So his decision to get out of the family business, he has to take all means necessary and risk his entire life just to get away from this life of crime that he's been born into.
Okay, so it's Hopper who's trying to get out of the business? Okay.
It is Hopper, yeah.
Wow, that sounds dope.
Yeah.
Like I said, as we're recording, it's in theaters now. It probably won't be in theaters by the time this comes out, but it will be on demand. So everybody go check that out everywhere. I can't wait to see that. That's going to be amazing.
It's going to be cool. It's been getting the reviews have been rolling in. It's getting some really positive reviews. So I'm excited about it. And it'll be everywhere. The Hulus, the Apples, the Primes, all that stuff.
Fantastic. I know that Devil's Peak got greenlit when Billy Bob came on board. How many projects have you seen go by the wayside or get put on indefinite hold because it's hard to get a huge name attached?
Mainly all of them. I mean, because at least in the independent world, now, if you're working with a studio, like on Half Baked, for example, I'm bringing that up because I just finished that movie. There's no obligation to a certain level of cast on a studio movie because they have their whole system, their whole pipeline. It's not fully contingent on cast. With the indie movies, the way that the market works is that the buyers in all the different territories have to basically ante in for the movie. And the only way they're going to put up their hard-earned money is if it's being backed by a star.
The word bankable comes to mind.
Bankable. If it's a bankable movie, exactly. And there's a list of actors and actresses who make your movie bankable. So, and essentially financing a movie, the actual financing of it is very, very easy. The hard part is actually attracting the star to make it bankable, because once you have the bankable star signed in, you can go to any number of banks and they'll give you a loan against it like a house because they know you have a bankable star. It's common knowledge that that star equals money across the world. There is a certain strategy to doing so, which I'll share because it seems very straightforward and obvious, but so many new filmmakers who come to me don't realize it. It's how hard do you want it to be for yourself, right? Because I've received scripts that I think are the best thing I've ever read, but the writer doesn't necessarily have a bunch of credits. And the problem you run into with that is you need to get a director before you get a cast. In order to get a director, you need to have an excellent script. And so if you have a script that, even if it's great and it's not by somebody of note, then it's going to be very hard to get that excellent director to read that script. So if I give a script written by Charlie Kaufman, I can guarantee they're going to read it that week. If it's a script written by me, who I'm not known as a screenwriter, it's going to take them a month. If I give them a script by somebody where you can't find anything on them, they probably won't read the script, even if it's great. So a lot of screenwriters, especially if they're just starting out, it's like I encourage them to like submit to competitions, because any kind of merit of social proof will kind of bump that script up in the priority reading list for whatever talent you're trying to attach. And that's another reason why the novels help, because if it's based on a novel that people are familiar with, it bumps it. Not only is it a good story, that's paramount, but it adds a certain level of social proof or interest into just getting the director to read the script. Because before you could ever go to any cast member, you have to have a great script and a great director. Once you have that, the job of attaching talent to it becomes infinitely easier. It's still hard, but you can't really attach talent to a script without a director. And you can't even get a great director to read a script that's not necessarily known or by somebody who has shown that they can write a great script, because they just don't want to spend the time. Because 9 out of 10 or 99 out of 100 scripts they read are going to be terrible. And everybody knows that. So it's like if they can get a script and they say, this one's statistically likely to be a good script because I know this writer, that ups your chances.
Gotcha.
I forgot what we were talking about, but I think I'm still on topic.
No, that was it. We were talking about bankable stars and how hard it was to get a project made without one.
And now the workaround for that too, by the way, is like, that's why a lot of the movies that I started off making didn't have these giant stars out, because there's a level, right? It's like, if I'm only making a movie for a couple $100,000, like I don't necessarily need a star. Like I can just make whatever I want and I can raise the money and I can make it happen that way.
Real quick, I have to ask, how surreal was it to watch Sling Blade in a theater with Billy Bob Thornton in Atlanta?
How'd you know that one too?
I know everything.
Where do you get this
I'm
information?
amazing. Tell me how surreal that was.
You have the dark web search bar on there?
I am the dark web.
That was awesome. I mean, it was the 25th anniversary of Sling Blade. What was cool is Billy loves that role. He's got a lot of affinity for that role. And so he just launched into Sling Blade, and he did it for, a good amount of time. It's just perfect, flawless. Even though he looks different now, he's thin, he's got the goatee. He went full Sling Blade on us for a while. That was awesome. It was just good timing. They were honoring that picture while we were there, that he invited us to do it. It was super fun.
That is fantastic. Okay, so besides Devil's Peak, which is VOD everywhere by the time this comes out, later on this year, you have 57 Seconds. I think it's coming out in September.
It is.
That is starring Morgan Freeman and Josh Hutcherson. What can you tell me about that film? Oh, and also you're in this one.
I am in this one. Yeah, I am. And I produced this. This was my baby that we worked on for like 4 years. Also based on a short story by a British writer named E.C. Tubb. Who's pretty legendary. So we acquired that short story, and it's about a guy who's a little down and out, and he finds a ring that's owned by a tech superstar played by Morgan Freeman. It's like a Steve Jobs kind of a character. Sure. He finds a prototype for this ring that allows him to reset time 57 seconds. At first, he uses that ring to his great financial advantage, but pretty soon it kind of sets him off on a downward spiral of sorts. And the origins of that ring and why he came about it, and maybe fate. There's a little mystery to why that happens, which is revealed at the end of the movie. It's a good one. I really love that picture. And we just finished post on it, and we delivered it. So it's coming out in September, and in some festival before that, I'm sure it'll premiere at. But I'm a big fan of that picture. And Josh Hutcherson is an amazing actor and leading man.
Is Josh the kid from the Hunger Games?
He's a kid from Hunger Games, and right now he's shooting. I think it's announced, so I can say, but he's shooting Five Nights at Freddy's. There's a whole series of that I believe Blumhouse is doing, and he's the lead of that.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
So I'm really stoked because he's so talented. I don't know if you saw Future Man, but that's why I thought of him for 57 Seconds. He's so good in Future Man.
Cool. I haven't, but I will. So is that going to be in theaters? Are we hoping? Do we know?
I don't know yet. I believe that the sales agent we use is delivering it to Paramount, and I haven't heard yet what their plans are for the release of that one yet.
Gotcha. You work with Paramount a lot. Again, today, as we record, Devil's Peak, starring Billy Bob Thornton, Robin Wright, and Jackie Earle Haley, in theaters now on VOD by the time you hear this. Look for 57 Seconds, starring Morgan Freeman and Josh Hutcherson in September everywhere. Just look for it. But also later on this year, hopefully, will be Half Baked 2. Why?
Why Half Baked 2?
Yeah, why this movie? I know that you loved this movie, but why did you feel the need to get involved, or did they bring it to you?
Why did it take so long for it to get made?
Yeah, ask Tom Cruise and the Top Gun people. I mean, they took the longest I've ever seen anything ever.
I know, right? I produced 7 movies, I believe, for Universal. Extraordinary group of people over there, really talented people. I love them. We had met about some properties that they had that they know that they wanted to, that they owned, because Universal owns Half Baked, that they wanted to do. And they're kind of going through the list, and they got to Half Baked them like that one. I was a senior in high school when that came out. And so we loved it. It was like such a cult movie. And I love comedy. Like comedy is one of my favorite genres, and I've never really had an opportunity to make one. So this is really the first comedy feature I produced. So I just jumped at that one. I've seen the movie. It's done. And it's great. It's really, really funny. The cast it's Jeff Ross. It's Harlan Williams. Dexter Darden, I think, is a massive star. He's one of the leads of it. And just a really great group of people. Wendy O'Brien, who cast, she's won the Emmy for casting Abbott Elementary. She cast the picture, did a tremendous job because it's like it's one of the best casts I've ever had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm not even in it, ladies and gentlemen. Holy moly.
Well, we could still deposit you in with some VFX. Not too late.
Earlier, you mentioned there's sort of an unwritten list of bankable stars. Am I on that list?
You are. It's not tier 1. You're not on there with Denzel, but it's there. Yeah.
I'm down there below Kathy Griffin.
So you've seen the list. Okay.
Yeah, there you Griff, as we're heading out, is there anything I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that you wanted to specifically talk about today? Did I miss anything?
No, I love what we talk about here. That's very well researched. Is there anything else that you know that I don't know that you know?
Let's see here. Yes. Is your dad's office still intact, even though he's not there anymore?
His office is still intact, but it's been modified. It's been modified so the physical space exists.
Is that movie poster still up there? It was like a horror comedy movie.
Silent Rage?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was Silent Rage. Yeah,
I love Silent.
He had that movie poster in his office. He loved it so much.
No, did you interview my father?
No. Oh my gosh, I wish. I wasn't doing this when he was around.
Okay.
I think I started it. Oh my gosh, I started this probably the same month he passed.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, my brother and I went. So after he passed away, not like the day after, but within that year, we split everything. My part of my mother's process was she kind of moved her office into his office. And he had a lot of like trinkets and memorabilia from all of his movies. And so we all went over there and we kind of split things up. So my brother took some really cool memorabilia. I took some awesome stuff. And then we took it to Michael's, the thing. We built those like little shadow boxes. And so and like put different. So I have a St. Elsewhere. I have the finale script plus his scrubs.
Oh, wow.
And like a picture of all the cast autographed. And it's all like in this nice little box. My brother's got some stuff from like Johnny Carson. And so we just like created these little things of the stuff he had in his office, and then we have them in our offices.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that story.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad I asked.
I think it's Silent Rage and The Unseen are probably like the two closest to horror comedies.
Nice. Yeah, it was definitely Silent Rage that I was thinking of. Oh my gosh. Griff Furst, producer, screenwriter, director, actor, super cool dude. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic doing all those things, wearing all those hats schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I dig what you do, and thanks for having me on, man. Anytime, I'll be back.
I appreciate it. You are wonderful. Go check out that episode with John Griffin.
I will.
And look into Scott Sigler. Thank you so much, dude. Go play with your kids. Go do whatever. You're leaving in like 7 minutes. Take it easy, man. Thank you so much.
See ya. Bye.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.